It's Tuesday, August 11th. This is CTV News at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. Stuck on the wrong floor. Residents at a Halifax seniors home say a broken elevator has them trapped. And a canceled outdoor Christian concert has led a faith group to sue the city of Moncton.
Sunny and warm tomorrow, but with lower humidity. A chance of showers in the region for both Thursday and Friday.
Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Jesse Thomas.
Good evening. Todd Battis is off tonight. An update now on a story we brought you last night about 3 teens joyriding on top of and half out of a car in Moncton over the weekend, which was all caught on video. Now more videos of the dangerous ride are surfacing. CTV's Derek Haggett has the latest.
A dangerous joyride has resulted in the arrests of 3 teens. A new video, which appears to be taken by one of the teens, shows a black vehicle with a youth hanging out the window in a Moncton park. The driver then goes down the sidewalk. When CTV News showed the video to people who live here, they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
That's insane, especially where I have young kids and young kids that play soccer in that field. It's nuts.
I'm very surprised because, I mean, we have tiny kids that come here and play in the yard, like play soccer. It's crazy.
It's pretty scary because I take my grandkids for walks when they come to visit. So I thought it was very ridiculous.
Police received multiple reports of dangerous driving and car surfing in Moncton Sunday afternoon. Reports regarding the stolen vehicle and dangerous driving continued throughout the day. There were also complaints about thefts from businesses and break-ins, including this machine shop in Skaduk. The stolen car was eventually located in a ditch, and a 16-year-old girl and boy were arrested after a brief foot pursuit. A 14-year-old boy later turned himself in, all 3 from Moncton. The woman who posted the original video says she was concerned about the kids.
They were laughing. They were having a great time, but everybody around, you could just tell, was so worried and upset that something was going to happen.
The video has been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. The RCMP says no injuries were reported during any of Sunday's incidents. All 3 teens have since been released from custody and are scheduled to appear in court in late November. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
And Halifax police have charged a man accused of making a bomb threat, which caused an evacuation of several downtown streets yesterday in Halifax. 54-year-old Ali Azakare, accused of making a bomb threat against the local U.S. consulate on Sunday night. Police found the suspect's vehicle the next morning in the parkade at Purdy's Wharf along the Halifax waterfront, the same building where the consulate is located. After finding a propane tank and containers, police evacuated the parkade and neighboring streets. As explosives experts later determined they posed no threat to public safety, the man appeared in Halifax court today via video and has been charged with uttering threats and public mischief. He's due back in court again tomorrow morning. And a reminder, for more coverage of this story, visit our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. And the Eastern Canadian premiers and New England governors have wrapped up their meetings in the U.S. The meetings come at a critical time as both countries try to work out a trade deal. Lizzie Jensen of WCAX in Burlington, Vermont, has more on what the leaders all discussed.
Leaders from both sides of the border spent the weekend here at Shelburne Farms doing something they say the federal government has failed to do: talk.
Relationships are our most critical infrastructure.
The weekend of diplomacy tackled some of the most pressing cross-border issues of the moment: tariffs, energy, tourism, alcohol bans, and the looming shadow of federal tension between Washington and Ottawa.
This is a two-way street. Economic prosperity of the United States and security of the United States is dependent on that free, open relationship with Canada.
The Trump administration's tariffs on Canadian goods have strained one of the country's most important trade relationships, and Scott has been vocal in his opposition.
It's unfortunate. Again, I don't blame them for being angry. I don't blame them for what little retribution they've done.
He recently sent a letter to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, pushing back on the latest rounds of levies. Scott says he has not heard back, but tariffs were a major talking point over the weekend.
Friendship's good, tariffs bad, basically. I mean, these are long-standing friendships and relationships, and the commercial trade between our two countries is so important.
When pressed on what concrete solutions came out of the weekend, leaders pointed to energy as a bright spot.
And I just want to reiterate that Quebec wants to be a partner and will continue to be a reliable partner for our American friends in matters of energy.
Though they did not share any specific details on what continued collaboration would look like.
All right, that story from Lizzie Jensen of WCAX in Burlington, Vermont. Now, American booze was pulled from store shelves more than a year ago as a response to U.S. tariffs. It's been so effective, it's now part of Canada's trade negotiations. But does that mean a return of American wine and spirits? CTV's Jonathan McGuinness looks into that today and has the story.
As Canada and the United States talk trade, returning American wine and spirits to store shelves is on the table. So will people be buying?
The California wines were my favorites.
But Janice Pete had to find a new favorite. As a response to U.S. tariffs, most Canadian provinces yanked U.S. liquor. Nova Scotia did so on March 4th of last year. So will she go back?
No, I won't buy U.S. Wines anymore, or any kinds of alcohol. I switched to some Canadian brands and also Australian, and those are my favorites now.
Neither will Sean Griffith.
It won't do anything for me. I'm not going to buy it. Doesn't do anything for me.
We always knew that the measure would be temporary.
Temporary, but effective. Exports of American alcohol to Canada dropped 81%, representing more than $580 million in 1 year. About 40% of all the bottled wine exports from California went to Canada. The head of Wine Growers Canada says that state will be fighting hard to bring their customers back. So Dan Paskowski says the country needs a strategy to maintain the momentum.
The governments can help the industry turn this into a win for Canadian wines, for Nova Scotia wines, and that's really the discussion that we'd like to have.
Not all provinces are willing to drop the booze ban for nothing. Ontario and Quebec have said the United States needs to lower or drop tariffs on Canadian goods. In a statement to CTV, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston says Trump's tariffs have hurt both the Canadian and American economy. While we can't control what happens in Washington, we can control what goes on our shelves. At this time, we have no plans to reinstate American alcohol. A spokesperson for the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission says should there be a change regarding future imports, the NSLC would assess timelines and next steps at that time. But Jesse, what might be an indication of what will happen when U.S. booze returns? If you remember back on December 1st of last year, the Nova Scotia government decided to sell off its remaining stock of $14 million worth of U.S. alcohol. 9 months later, Jesse, there is still U.S. wine on some store shelves.
All right, thanks, John. That's CTV's Jonathan McGuinness
News
in Cole Harbour tonight. That brings us to tonight's CTV web poll. We're asking, would you buy U.S. alcohol if it was put back on store shelves? The answers are straightforward. It's either a yes or that's going to be a no. All right. Here's a live look outside at some beach scenes. It's 6:08. We are bringing in Kaylin Mitchell now, our meteorologist who's in the weather center currently. And I think we're seeing kind of a break to this humidity now, Kaylin. That's kind of on the forecast here.
Going to be coming in tonight and for tomorrow as we get in behind a weather front that's making its way across the region this evening. Now, that front is bringing in some variable conditions around the Maritime. Some areas are seeing some very picturesque beach scenes like we just saw in the video there. Other locations, though, showers or even a few thunderstorms moving through. It is an area of low pressure, a couple weather fronts with it that has triggered the unsettled weather conditions for today. Let's take a closer look at where some of these showers and thunderstorms are occurring. So the biggest line or band of thunderstorms developed basically between Doketown and Miramichi has continued to progress towards the southeast over the last couple of hours. It's now coming in through the Rishabukto area. Could be heading as well down towards St. Antoine. There is still a chance that western parts of Prince Edward Island could see a shower or a small thunderstorm move in over the next next couple of hours. There's also been a couple of downpours that developed and moved quickly through the south of New Brunswick, one passing directly over St. John. That is now over the Bay of Fundy waters, and there's been a line of a couple of downpours that have developed around parts of Nova Scotia. Some of those running up just in around the Minas Basin past the Truro area, and then up towards New Glasgow and Pictou County, and a couple pop-up showers up in Cumberland County as well. Still low chance that a few of those could develop into a small thunderstorm, but most of the shower and thunderstorm activity, in fact all of it, is going to be coming to an end as we move later into this evening. As we head later into this evening, as far as cloud cover goes for the region, just a few clouds are expected to be around, maybe with some fog patches developing during the overnight, but generally speaking, if you head out there after the shower or thunderstorm wraps up, it's pretty good viewing conditions for night sky. Now, you're not going to be seeing much of the moon tonight. It's a waning crescent moon. It's only around 1% illuminated, and it's below the horizon for most of the night. The Perseids meteor shower peak is still coming up, beginning actually late tomorrow night. The radiant point is high over the northeastern horizon. And speaking of things to see in the skies, there's a partial solar eclipse coming up on Wednesday for the Maritime region. It starts at 2 p.m. and finishes at 4 p.m. But unless you have solar eclipse viewing glasses, or you've made yourself one of those fancy little pinpoint projector viewers, you're not really going to notice this one all that much. And I'll talk more about why that is when I'm back just a little bit later on. Jesse.
All right, that sounds great, Kellen. Thanks for that. We'll see you back here in about 15 minutes' time for your full weather. And now in other news, residents at a senior home in Halifax are sharing concerns over their inability to get up and down floors. They say the only elevator in the building has been unreliable and sometimes unusable. CTV's Vanessa Wright has the story.
Pamela Punch has made something of a home out of this small area. She has her own unit on the 3rd floor, but since Sunday has been sleeping in the building's common room on the 1st floor.
People eventually began to find me in here and say, "What are you doing?" And I told them. And I said I had to because the elevator is breaking so often.
About 100 seniors live in the Elman Street building, many with mobility issues.
A lot of them have other issues, like breathing issues, heart issues, and they simply can't do the stairs either. So some people have not been out of their apartments for a long time.
She says the elevator broke 8 times last week. Recovering from a knee replacement, the 79-year-old says she can no longer make the trip down 2 flights of stairs.
I'm just learning to walk again, and it's difficult enough to go in a straight line, but on the stairs, it's really hard.
The president of Northwood Group Home Companies, who own the building, acknowledged the elevator issues.
We are sorry. These failures over the summer, we know it's disrupted people's lives and it's made it hard for residents to do something as basic as going home. And that's really not our standard.
He admits the decades-old elevator is reaching the end of its working life.
For that reason, we have earlier this year already signed a contract with TK to modernize and replace the elevator. That work is planned for later this year. We just haven't really communicated the dates to our residents because we want to move up the dates and we're trying to do it sooner.
Punch says the issues with their only elevator has taken its toll.
It's not good for physical or mental health in any one of us, all right? We're all suffering that way. And I wish I could afford to leave the building. I would love to.
Well, the elevator has now been fixed. Residents hope it stays that way. They'd also like better communication from management about their concerns moving forward. Jesse.
Okay, a fix. That's great for news for residents there. That's Vanessa Wright reporting live in Halifax tonight. Now to New Brunswick, a Christian organization is suing the city of Moncton after it canceled an event in a public park last summer featuring American worship leader and musician Sean Fuchs. New Brunswick was just one of the many tour stops along his cross-Canada tour last year and is not the only city facing a lawsuit. CTV's Anna Mandan has more.
The city of Moncton is being sued by a Christian ministry for canceling a concert last July featuring a controversial U.S. singer 2 days before the event. At the time, the city cited public safety concerns and its code of conduct in city facilities. Charter Advocates Canada is representing Burn 24/7 Canada Ministries.
If you're going to be canceling events of the Canadian public,
you have to have real justification for that.
The event was set for July 24th, 2025. It featured Sean Foyt, a right-wing Christian musician who has been very supportive of U.S. President Donald Trump and has spoken against abortion and LGBTQ+ communities. Moncton's mayor did not provide an interview, saying he has nothing to add while the matter is before the courts. But in a statement on July 23rd, 2025, the city said it found the event was non-compliant with its code of conduct and determined it posed potential safety and security risks. Now, Burn 24/7 Canada is seeking a declaration that the city violated its freedom of expression and is asking for $50,000 in charter damages.
What matters here is that the city canceled an event without giving any opportunity for Burn 24/7 to properly address those concerns.
One constitutional law associate professor at the University of New Brunswick says the lawsuit has wider implications.
I think the case raises broader questions about use of public space and when, if ever, it's appropriate for a city to withdraw or cancel a musician's permit.
More confirmed a similar case against Quebec City is before the courts, and more could be on the way. Anna Mandan, CTV News, Fredericton.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Health Canada has authorized Moderna to begin Canada's first clinical trial of a vaccine targeting a strain of Ebola, which, according to the Democratic Republic of Congo, has seen over 4,000 confirmed cases and at least 2,000 deaths as of today, making it the second largest Ebola outbreak on record. Now, as CTV's Brianne Foley explains, testing in Nova Scotia was an obvious partnership.
3 test sites in Truro, Halifax, and Toronto have been chosen by Moderna to conduct a clinical trial for a vaccine against the Bundibugyo strain of Ebola.
This particular strain, there's no vaccine that protects against it. We have a vaccine that works very well against the Zaire strain, which had caused the outbreaks 10 years ago. Have partnered with Moderna to do clinical trials for a number of their vaccines. So they have a good working relationship with us.
The phase 1 study began last week in Truro, with participants in Halifax enrolling this week. There are a total of 80 adults throughout the 3 sites.
The main focus is on safety, how well the vaccine is tolerated. So it's done in small numbers of people. And they are healthy young adults. People, in a very careful way, are given a dose of the vaccine and are monitored very closely.
While this strain is not new, a vaccine had not been created because previous outbreaks had been small and contained. According to Dr. Halperin, the political landscape in the Democratic Republic of the Congo had a lot to do with the ability to contain and identify this outbreak, declared on May 15th.
This vaccine is interesting because the likelihood is we'll never use it in Canada.
You know, sort of rampant warfare and unrest can kind of pivot off into the best made plans of a clinical trial go awry when you can't do it safely.
Even though Canadians may not ever use it, there is belief that it's an obligation of countries that can help to help.
We're leaders in vaccine research, and certainly we are here in Nova Scotia. I think we have a responsibility to participate as best as we can in any research.
The hope is that phase 2 will begin mid-fall in Africa. Brianne Foley, CTV News, Halifax.
And city councillors in Fredericton have rejected the idea of trying to take ownership of a historic building that was damaged by fire in 2024. The Militia Arms warehouse building in downtown Fredericton is owned by the Department of National Defense, who offered the city to give it ownership of the building through a federal divestment process. Now, last night, City Council unanimously declined DND's offer following a recommendation from staff report calling the move risky. The Fredericton Heritage Trust calls the decision disappointing.
Nobody mentioned the H word, heritage, or National Historic Site. Those things don't appear to have made any impact on DND or the city of Fredericton.
The building itself is nearly 200 years old in the historic Garrison District. DND says in a statement tonight that no decision has been made on the future of the building. As of right now, the Heritage Trust says it's not giving up on the fight to save the building. And Canada's East Coast military has a new commander. Rear Admiral Pascal Belhumeur assumed command from Rear Admiral José Kurtz during a ceremony today. The new commander is now responsible for the Royal Canadian Navy on the East Coast.
All the forces that are here in Halifax, as well as the Joint Task Force Atlantic. So when you look at Joint Task Force Atlantic, that is all of the provinces, and it could be the defense of those provinces or reaction to a domestic issue. Could it be a hurricane or flooding or fires like we have seen in the last few years? All that is coordinated through the headquarters here.
It's a major base there. There are almost 11,000 military and civilian personnel who form the Maritime Forces Atlantic Defense Team. All right, still to come, sunny, warm days ahead. Kaylin's full forecast is on the way, but next, a desperate search for survivors of a devastating earthquake in Colombia.
The desperate search for survivors in Colombia after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake rocked the country. I'm Rena Roy, and I'll have the latest coming up.
This is the Campfire Conditions Report brought to you by Pine Acres RV, where customers become friends. And for the province of New Brunswick, you are currently allowed to have a campfire. For Nova Scotia, most counties are allowed to have a campfire between the hours of 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. There are a few exceptions. In Antigonish County, as well as Richmond and Cape Breton counties, campfires are currently allowed between 2 p.m. and 8 a.m. And for Prince Edward Island, campfires are currently allowed with domestic brush burning between the hours of 2 p.m. and 8 a.m.
Welcome back. Search and rescue teams in Colombia have resumed efforts to find some of the 3,000 people reported missing after a powerful earthquake killed close to 200 people. About 1,600 buildings are damaged after yesterday's 7.4 magnitude earthquake. ABC's Rena Roy has the latest.
It's a race against the clock in Colombia, where rescuers are searching rubble for any signs of life. Entire apartment buildings splitting open, collapsing, trapping people under debris after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake rocked the country Monday. This 6-month-old baby covered in dust pulled alive from the rubble. And this woman pulled through this hole in a hospital that partially collapsed. She was tied to a rescuer who then rappelled down the wall to safety. Thousands of structures across multiple cities destroyed. This man walking through a neighborhood in the city of Cali that was flattened, saying he's speechless over the loss. You can see the moment the quake hit, travelers at the airport taking cover under a counter, part of the ceiling falling just feet away. Silvana Botero, who lives in Chicago, was visiting family in Medellin when everything started shaking.
Like, I just hear like some shaking, and I hear my mom screaming like, oh, there's an earthquake.
The injured lining the streets, aid groups stressing the need for help.
The epicenter that was Chocó is very known for its poverty, so a lot of people are in need right now.
The president of Colombia has declared an emergency to expedite funding for recovery. The U.S. alone has promised more than $15 million for emergency shelter, food, and other aid. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
And still to come, a chance of showers for the end of the week. Kaylin Mitchell's back with those details and weather. Stay with us. This is where we should be right now, Kaylin. Eastern Passage, right? Nice afternoon for some golf at Heartland Point Golf Club. A little bit of a breeze there, perhaps, as you can see from the flag movement.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, if you have to work on your golf shot in some winds, if that's something you're looking to do, that's a great course to do it.
No pressure, though, either. The camera's on you here. Does the putt go in, though?
Well, that was a long putt. Probably better than I would have done.
All right.
For sure. Like I said, definitely a little bit of a breeze around coastal areas for today. This evening, we're dealing with a few thunderstorms and some showers for parts of the region. That's going to be winding down later this evening. And then coming up for tomorrow, well, I want to talk a little bit more about that partial solar eclipse. So let's begin with that. And the key word here is partial. Partial. Okay. This is nothing like that total solar eclipse we had back in 2024. As we take a look at the maritime region for this eclipse for tomorrow, it's going to range from about 25% for some of the westernmost communities in the Maritimes to maybe close to 40% for some of the easternmost communities in Cape Breton. But just because it could even be, say, around 30% partial solar eclipse doesn't mean you're going to get 30% of the experience of where the eclipse is going to be total, that path of totality. Because with these solar eclipse events, you're basically under that path of totality and you get a great experience, or you're outside of it, and if you don't have basically glasses or that pinpoint projector, you might not notice much at all. The path of totality for this one, that's going to be moving through Spain and parts of Iceland and Greenland. So just to wrap it up here for the Maritimes, this is for tomorrow. It begins around 2 p.m. It finishes around 4 p.m. It'll be at its peak at around 3 p.m. Again, you won't be noticing much with just your eyes. If you're just out and about during those hours in the region, you probably won't notice much at all because there's a vast, vast difference between being underneath the path of totality and outside of it. Of course, do not look directly at the sun with your eyes. You can damage your eyes. Sunglasses regularly, the sunglasses won't cut it as well. You need that safety mark of ISO 12312-2, or you can use that pinhole projector to safely watch as well. Let's take a look at what's going on as far as cloud conditions go over the next 24 to 36 hours. So first of all, for this evening, remaining showers and thunderstorms coming to an end. And by around midnight, just a few clouds around, some fog patches developing for the province of Nova Scotia. And then in the forecast for tomorrow, fog will be dissipating in the morning hours. The afternoon, a very fair weather mix of sun and cloud for all three maritime provinces. And then as we head into Wednesday evening and Wednesday night, there's the peak of the Perseid meteor shower coming up. Now, viewing conditions for that are best beginning around 11 p.m. Wednesday night and extending into the very early morning hours of Thursday. Looks like the weather's going to cooperate. There'll just be a few clouds around, and because it is a new moon, we won't be competing with any moonlight for spotting some of those meteors. Now, you need to have patience. You need to get away from city lights. You need to give your eyes time to adjust to the dark, so no staring at bright phone screens, and you want to be looking generally off towards the north and northeast. It's always a little bit hit and miss with these meteor showers, but the Perseids, in some of its best years, has been known to produce up to between 50 and 100 an hour. As we take a look at our winds in the forecast for tomorrow, they're going to be out of the west and northwest, and they will be breezy with some gusts between 20 and 40 kilometers per hour for Wednesday afternoon. Low temperatures in the forecast for tonight for the province of New Brunswick mostly fall between 12 and 15 degrees, down to around 16 for Charlottetown and Summerside for tonight. And for Nova Scotia, most of the low temperatures between 15 and 18. Highs for tomorrow for communities in the north of New Brunswick between 23 and 26, with central and southern parts of that province with high temperatures that'll be around the mid-20s. For Prince Edward Island for tomorrow, high temperatures about 23 to 25 degrees for most of the province with a mix of sun and cloud. Cape Breton tomorrow with high temperatures between 20 and 24. Mid-20s around the north shore of mainland Nova Scotia. For coastal areas on the eastern shore, between around 23 and 25 degrees, so 26 at Sheet Harbour. And for Halifax and Dartmouth, 25 at Truro and 25 at Amherst. The Annapolis Valley for tomorrow with high temperatures near 26 degrees. And on the south shore of Nova Scotia, most of the high temperatures 24 to 27, though closer to 23 at Yarmouth and Barrington. Taking a look at the extended forecast. Returning chance of showers with a risk of thunderstorms for the end of this week, both on Thursday and Friday for New Brunswick. The coverage of those showers, once again, looks like it is going to be scattered, typical summertime stuff. Sunny for Saturday, and then a mix of sun and cloud for Sunday. Weekend conditions looking very pleasant. Chance of showers after that on Monday and Tuesday, a mix of sun and cloud. For Nova Scotia in the forecast, tomorrow, very pleasant day. Could see some isolated showers on both Thursday and Friday. And the weekend weather conditions looking very fair with a mix of sun and cloud. After that, it'll be a chance of showers on Monday and Tuesday of next week. And for Prince Edward Island, the forecast coming out both Thursday and Friday, about a 40% chance of a shower on each of those days. It'll be sunny for Saturday with a mix of sun and cloud in the forecast for Sunday, and that's followed by a chance of showers on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Jesse.
All right, thanks for that, Kalen. We'll check in with you later on the weather deck for wake-up weather. But next, we'll talk about the growing problems of copper wire theft in Canada and here in the Maritimes. Stay with us.
Okay, so coming up tomorrow, another chance to win a $100 gift card to Shoppers Drug Mart.
As well, we are going to have 2 sets of weekend passes for Vibrancy Festival.
It's going down at the Halifax Cinema.
Welcome back. A rash of copper thefts in our region is more than just a nuisance, with phone and internet outages being reported within the last week in Colchester County, Nova Scotia. There have also been reported thefts recently in New Brunswick and on PEI. Now, to talk about it, what seems like a growing problem, we're joined by Paula Simons, an independent senator sitting in Canada's upper chamber. Thanks for joining us, Paula. You're in Edmonton, Alberta. I'm just wondering, what's the situation with copper thefts there in Western Canada? What's it look like?
Oh, it's been a chronic problem in Alberta for years. And in fact, entirely by coincidence, or I guess not really coincidence, I had a request for CBC Calgary who wanted to talk to me tomorrow morning because they had a major internet outage. Rogers had a major copper wire incident over the last couple of days, and they lost their internet access.
Yeah, telecoms are having a major issue with these thefts right now.
This is an issue. This is an issue for telecoms, and that is why we in the Senate, I'm a member of the Standing Senate Committee on Transport and Communications, so we did a major study on copper wire theft a few months ago, and what we learned in the course of that study is that this isn't just a telecom problem. This is a problem for power, and it's a power problem on construction sites all over the place. I was chatting with my next door neighbor and telling him that I was going to be speaking with you this afternoon, and he said, oh, 2 of his work sites have had copper wire thefts in the last little while. So anywhere that people are working with copper, there is a huge vulnerability. And I checked this morning the world price for copper, and it looks like a Rocky Mountain range.
Yeah.
It's spiking higher and higher and higher, and when
near record high prices right now for copper, right? Is that what's really driving this? I'm wondering, in your report, if you looked in, what's really driving these thefts right now? Because on the surface, it doesn't really seem like it's just crimes of opportunity, right? This seems to be more calculated.
Some of them are definitely crimes of opportunity. Some of them are, hey, I walked past and I saw a roll of copper wire, and so I put it in the back of my truck and away I went. But some of this requires skill and technique, because when you're stripping the wire out of power applications, I mean, you're actually running a real risk of electrocuting yourself. I see you're showing video of some guy up doing that just now. Yeah. So this isn't just something where it falls off the back of a pickup truck in every instance. So part of the problem is that I think people see it as a relatively easy, victimless crime. They don't perceive it as, it's not like boosting somebody's car or breaking into somebody's house. You're not sort of in their personal space. And I think that's one of the reasons it's appealing to thieves. Yeah. And I think the other thing is that copper wire is copper wire. How do you know if it's your copper wire or someone else's copper wire? It's not like you can trace the provenance of something to say this came from my facility, this came from my operation.
And this metal we know gets melted down after it's transitioned through. A couple other questions. This is really an interesting and topical. It really reaches far and wide, this issue. But there are issues because this is a huge cost, not only for people who are subscribers and maybe they don't have access to their phone line anymore because of these thefts, so it's a public safety issue. But do we know what the larger cost is overall? Did your report look at that? I know you're recommending harsher penalties for sure for those that are caught stealing copper.
Right. Well, it's hard to know what the overall cost is, in part because these are things that are happening mostly in provincial jurisdiction, and it's up to provinces to regulate how the shops that sell this material are regulated. Because, this is the problem. You come and you say, hey, I have some copper wire.
Yeah.
And the buyer says, okay, what is the provenance of this copper wire? Maybe I don't care. So if we're not regulating the resale, that is a problem. And that is something that is outside of federal jurisdiction.
Gotcha.
That is something that provinces have to work on. So one of the things that we called for in our report, because I'm from Alberta, we're very sensitive here to the issue of the federal government trespassing on provincial jurisdiction. But we did suggest that the provinces get together and work on a strategy. Also, so that if somebody steals copper wire in Nova Scotia, they don't drive it to New Brunswick to sell, and then it's out of jurisdiction. So that's a problem in the Atlantic provinces where you're close together and people can do that. But one of the things that came out of our report, I like to think, is that not long after we had done the work on the report, the Mark Carney government came out with a rules to make tougher sentences for people who are convicted of not specifically copper wire theft, but for theft that has an impact on critical infrastructure. Okay. So copper wire is certainly captured by that.
You talked about the provinces, so we're getting tight for time here, but I'm wondering, you talk about provinces really having a role to play in this. Are there any levers that provincial government can pull to make it harder for criminals to cash in on these kinds of thefts?
Yeah, I mean, there are things we could do to regulate the way that resale works. There are things that we could do, as I say, to make sure that things are not crossing over borders. But federally, I do want to come back to this because this is my jurisdiction as a senator. That law came into force in July of this year, July 15th. It's coming into force date. So that does make the penalties much higher for thefts that target critical infrastructure. Because before now, the penalties were pretty minor because it was a fairly minor theft. Now people can face much tougher penalties. I don't think there's been any, I mean, as I say, this only came into effect 3 weeks ago. So we'll have to see with these new criminal sanctions, whether that's some kind of a deterrent or whether the problem is just that these are easy crimes and they come in rashes. I'm hopeful that once we get the first few tougher sentences, maybe people will think twice.
What about the scrapyards themselves, the reputable businesses for the most part? Are they making it too easy on criminals to cash in? And before you go, I'm wondering, put your provincial cap on. Is there one thing you do tomorrow to make a change?
Well, I mean, I think it is with the scrapyards that there could be some tighter regulation. But honestly, these are small organizations, some of them working kind of under the radar. It's not easy to regulate in that area. And as I say, I don't want to tell provinces what to do, but we have tougher sentences, but those sentences only come into force after you're convicted. So it's also going to take some work by police, particularly in rural areas where oftentimes policing is difficult. But if we don't make the arrests, then we don't get the convictions. And if we don't get the convictions, we don't get the tougher sentences. So absolutely, we need more law enforcement of this because eventually these are going to lead to situations where people die because they can't call 911 or because they don't have power.
Good points there. Yeah, certainly having greater ramifications, it seems, as this becomes a more widespread problem. Senator Simons, we'll have to leave it at that. I appreciate your time and your insight on this. That's Paula Simons. She's an independent senator from Alberta. Now, don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more news on the other side of this break. In the Lifeline tonight, U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order calling for fewer childhood vaccinations by limiting the inoculation schedule to 11 shots. CTV's Amanda Debison has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order calling for changes to childhood vaccine recommendations. The order also pushes for children to receive immunizations at separate appointments when possible, despite public health experts warning that delays can increase disease risks. The order comes as U.S. kindergarten vaccination rates have declined, and the country faces a measles outbreak that could threaten its elimination status. A new study suggests that mixing up your exercise routine may help you live longer. Researchers looked at data from more than 111,000 adults over several decades. It found that people who did a greater variety of physical activities had a lower risk of dying early than those who stuck to fewer types of exercise. In fact, those who mixed up their routines the most had about a 19% lower risk of death. Walking showed some of the strongest benefits, while running, racket sports, and weight training were also linked to better health. Experts say different types of movement may help the body in different ways, including heart health, strength, and overall fitness. Finally, a new study shows canine companionship can actually help in the recovery of patients who suffered a stroke.
We're kind of wired to be connected to nature, and dogs are just particularly good at creating that bond.
The study found patients who interacted with therapy animals showed greater engagement in their treatment, had increased physical activity, longer mobility, and lower stress compared to those without animals in their rehabilitation.
We already have a very active animal-assisted treatment program here at Mayo Clinic. We're going to expand that to try and meet more and more needs.
And the relationship wasn't a one-way street either. The doctor says the dog showed lower levels of stress after being in the hospital and working with patients. With Health and Medical News, I'm Amanda Debison for the Lifeline.
To some business news now and a look at the markets. The Dow ended the day down 184 points, and a new kingpin could soon rule the international cannabis trade as Curaleaf sets its sights on a Canadian company. And tonight, we're hearing reaction from that company. BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya has more.
Aurora Cannabis is in the crosshairs of U.S. giant Curaleaf, which is intending to launch an unsolicited takeover bid. The $4 per share offer was going straight to investors after reports that Aurora's board refused to engage in private talks. In a statement this afternoon, though, Aurora says, contrary to the reports, its lead director corresponded with Curaleaf CEO as recently as last month. Aurora says it plans to form a special committee of independent directors to consider the proposal. At one point today, shares of Aurora shot up more than 20%. And shares of Air Canada hit a 5-year high today amid reports of a new Aeroplan deal. Bloomberg is reporting U.S. investment giant Blackstone is close to buying a minority stake in Air Canada's loyalty program for $2 billion. Blackstone's investment could put more pressure on Aeroplan to generate returns, raising questions about future changes to rewards or fees. And attendance at Cineplex theaters is up, but so were expenses in the latest quarter. Shares of Cineplex were down after the movie chain reported profit in Q2 that missed analyst estimates. On the upside, though, Cineplex posted its best quarterly revenue in its history. It also opened a new Palladium, its entertainment-based venue just north of Toronto. And here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is up to 71.82. West Texas Intermediate also finished the day higher, up to 83.20 a barrel. Western Canadian Select is up to 65.81. And yet another record high for the TSX, closing at 36,475 points. Those are your business headlines. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
All right, thanks for that, Lindsay. Let's go to Kayla Mitchell now, who's in the Weather Center for a look at your wake-up weather. Hey, Kayla.
Yeah, a quick update on some of the thunderstorms that are active in the region as well. We still have some cells that are making their way through eastern parts of New Brunswick, just approaching the Shediac area now, packing lightning and downpours, and still a chance that there could be a thunderstorm in western parts of Prince Edward Island. Again, the shower, the thunderstorm activity will be winding down as we continue through this evening. Let's take a look at a viewer picture for tonight, and that takes us to Briar Island. This is one of my favorite things. It's a fog bow. This one was sent in by Eric Edmonds. Fog bow, same principle as a rainbow. It's just that the smaller water droplets that comprise the fog create a gray or more washed out appearance. Thank you for Eric for that. Briar Island for tomorrow may start off the day with some cloud and some fog, but after that, sunshine and 20 degrees. Day planner tomorrow across the Maritime region, a mix of sun and cloud in the morning hours. Morning temperatures around the mid to high teens, and in the afternoon, mostly sunny to a fair weather mix of sun and cloud, and most of the high temperatures around the mid-20s. Jesse.
Fog bow, that's a new one for me. Thanks for that, Kayla. All right, finally tonight, looking for a good book recommendation? Former U.S. President Barack Obama has you covered. Obama is set to host a podcast series on his favorite books called A Great Book with Barack Obama. The podcast will delve into books Obama says dramatically influenced him. Some guests are also slated to join him in the discussions. Barack Obama was known as an avid reader during his presidential terms, and he also authored several books of his own. The podcast will be available starting next month on September 24th. All right, that's a look at your day from here at home. I'll be back here at 11:30 filling in tonight for Bruce Frisco. And a reminder, you can always find these news headlines on our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. It's your home for news anytime. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.